Today, it's a typhoon day, which means I'm stuck inside, and that can only mean one thing. It's the perfect day to make some beer. So to make our beer, first we need to get all of our ingredients and all of our equipment. So what do we need? We need grain, if we're doing an all grain brew. We need yeast, hops, we need sanitizer to make everything clean, otherwise the beer will taste bad. We need a hydrometer to measure the alcohol and to measure when the yeast has stopped eating all the lovely fermentable sugars. We need a thermometer to measure the temperature of the water, very important. And we also need a brew bucket. This is to store your beer in so for when it ferments. And also you'll probably need, this is to pop the bottle caps on, a bottle capper. Alright, let's first talk about the grains. There's two main categories of grains. You've got base grains, which make up the bulk of your grain bill, and will have the most of these will be used. And then you've got specialty grains. And you use these just to add a little bit of flavour or to give an extra little bit of character. But you use these in small quantities. Ways you can add the grain into the water, into the wort. I like to do it in a grain bag, so it's less messy, it's easier to clean up after. Okay, next what we do is we add the grain into the water, and what this does is this converts the complex sugars inside the grain into simpler sugars which the yeast can then eat on and convert it into alcohol. However, different types of sugars are released depending on the temperature that you soak them in the water at. So the temperatures you'll be aiming towards are between 63 and 70 degrees Celsius. Toward the lower end, the types of sugars that are released are more easily broken down by the yeast, and therefore this will result in a beer which is higher alcohol but lower body, less flavour. The higher you go, the sugars that are released are less easily broken down by the yeast, which results in a more tasty, higher body beer, but it's less alcohol. So it depends on what style you want. Most people go towards the 67 degrees Celsius mark, because this is a nice happy medium. However, you've also got to be very careful, because if you go higher, if the temperature goes higher, then you'll kill the stuff which converts the complex sugars into more simpler sugars. So you can't then go back down to a lower level. It's a bit like boiling an egg. If you boil an egg at a high temperature, it will go thick. You can't then go to a lower temperature and hope for it to become smoother. It's just at that. So you've got to be meticulous about the temperature you want, which is why a thermometer is very, very important. Okay, let's put the grains inside. The starting temperature of the water can be a bit higher than your intended temperature. This is called the break temperature. So because of the grains, when you put it inside, it will cool down a little bit. So it doesn't matter. Or you can start at a lower temperature and then build up. It'll just affect the profile of your beer. And then mash it around, and you can see the flavours coming already. Make sure you keep stirring so that the water temperature stays constant all the way through. When the hour is up, what you then need to do is the next stage, which is called splaging. Splaging is when we take the grain out and we pour hot water all over it just to get out the remnants, the last little bits of this syrupy sugar out the grains. that's what we're going to do. The temperature of the water you should do it at shouldn't be too hot, but probably hotter than this. Around 75 degrees is a good temperature. Okay. What you've got careful not to do is you don't squeeze the bag. You can pour water into it, but if you squeeze the bag, then some not very tasty things will come out as well. So don't squeeze the bag. You might think that this step is diluting the beer, and you'll be right. You are diluting the beer, but it doesn't matter because soon you're going to be boiling it so it can concentrate it again. You can do this a few times until the water that comes out the bottom is clear, or until your pot is full. Okay, the next stage is now we boil the wort, probably between 30 minutes if it's this size, maybe okay, but 60 minutes, 90 minutes is better. The reason for this, I think there's lots of reasons. There's 4 main ones. Number 1, to sterilise the beer. When you boil it, it will sterilise any bugs and anything bad that's on the side. Number 2 is when you add the hops. You add the hops to the boiling water. Depending on how long the hops boil for, it will give a different flavour. So if you boil for 60 minutes, then the hops will be really bitter. But if you just add them in just before you stop boiling, a couple of minutes before, maybe 10 minutes before, it will be more, it'll have more of an aroma. The other reasons are to, as I said before, to concentrate the wort, so the wort will evaporate and you'll have a stronger beer. And the last reason is, when you boil it, I don't quite understand the science, but when you boil it, some chemical stuff happens and it makes the beer taste nice, real nice. Still raining. Typhoon. And 15 minutes before you quit, or for me, before the hour is up, you can add one of these. What should I show you? A tablet here. It's called Werflock. And what it does is it will clear your beer, make it more clear. Okay, for me, the hour is up, which means I can switch this off. Oh, that's the wrong button. And I also need to cool this down as quickly as I can. If you leave it, then some bad toxins and things will start to develop. I don't know exactly, but you should cool it down quite quickly. So maybe within half an hour, try and get this cool. So for me, I'll put it in a little ice bath, but you can do it various ways. Also, don't forget to put a clean lid on it, clean and sterilised. This beer is now sterilised. Don't let any bugs get into it. Don't let bacteria get into it, because it will go bad. I've tasted bad beer. It's not good. Oh my goodness. Alright, now you've cooled your beer down to room temperature, or around about there. And you're ready to put your beer, or your wort, into your brew bucket. First you need to sanitize everything. I use Star San. This thing is really good. It's really easy to use, instructions on the back, and it's much better than anything else. So buy this one and use it. Now you put it in your brew bucket. Don't ask me what happened to this. Ask my French friend Thomas. Idiot. And then make sure that everything's touched, it's all sanitized, and you can put your wort inside. And then we're ready to ferment. Now, your beer is inside your brew bucket. Before you put the yeast in, make sure that this is about room temperature. If the wort is too hot, then the yeast will die and you won't have any beer, you won't have any alcohol. Equally, if it's too cold, I'm not sure how cold, you can check the internet. Taiwan is boiling, so it'll never get too cold. But if it's too cold, then the yeast will just become inactive and you need to heat it up again. Okay, so be careful. But before you put the yeast in, you should use your hydrometer. Take a reading so you know what we call it the original gravity. That means how much sugar is in the water. And you can work out if you have the original gravity, you're reading now, and the final gravity, the reading after it's all been fermented, you can work out how much alcohol is in your beer. And you know if your beer has finished fermenting. Oh, an original gravity of about 0.045. That's okay. And then when we're ready, you just pop the yeast in. And then you wait until it's done. Maybe this takes 10 days, 2 weeks, a month. Check your hydrometer to know. Still raining. Oh, the airlock is bubbling away nicely. And the beer is frothing. Okay, you've left your beer bubbling for 2 weeks. The bubbling has stopped. You think it must be done. There's only one way to know. That is to use your hydrometer. Take a reading on one day, wait another day or two, take another reading. If it's the same, then you can be confident that the fermentation has stopped. And then what? Then we put it in the bottles. Most people like their beer fizzy, and there's an easy way to make your beer fizzy and to carbonate it, and that is to put sugar in the bottles before you put the lid on. And that way the yeast will eat the sugar, but there's nowhere for the carbon dioxide to go when it eats the sugar, the byproduct of it. There's nowhere for it to go, so it goes back into the beer and it makes it fizzy. But you need to be careful, because if you put too much sugar in, or if the beer hasn't finished fermenting, then what will happen is there'll be too much pressure and it will explode. The bottle will literally explode. They call it beer bombs. It's never happened to me, but apparently it is very scary and you should avoid it at all costs. So you need to make sure that there's an even amount of sugar distributed into each bottle. You can use the internet to find out how much sugar you want to use, but a nice way to evenly distribute it is to put it into some hot water, stir it around so that it's all even, and then you can put the same amount into each bottle.